Happening now. We want to welcome our viewers from across the United States and around the world. This is the EdTech Situation Room. Good morning, good day, good evening. This is EdTech Situation Room episode number 291. I just can't believe we are rounding the corner to 300 here. It's April 26, 2023. My name is Jason Neiffer, and I am the Executive Director of the Montana Digital Academy, which is Montana State Virtual School located on the beautiful University of Montana campus, located in lovely Missoula, Montana, in beautiful Western Montana. And joining me as always tonight from the East Coast, good evening, Dr. Wes Fryer.
That has a different ring to it. Good evening, Jason. I'm glad to be joining you from Matthews, North Carolina, where we have somewhere around 6 more weeks of school, I think. And it works out. We have a last week of what we call capstone, which isn't exactly classes. The kids are working with local nonprofits. And so cool. I think we got about 13 or 14 more class meetings, and things are just winding down quickly. But I'm an innovations teacher at Providence Day School. And actually, I'll be teaching some web design next year. Most likely, we're finalizing our course assignments, and hopefully continuing with robotics and definitely continuing with media literacy and computer apps. And so
let me ask this, Dr. Fryer. So it's interesting to hear that you might be doing web design next year, and being that you are a bit of a WordPress guru, would you go down more that route? Would you go a Wix route? Would you do HTML coding? What would be your strategy there in teaching web design to kiddos?
So I guess we need to start with some basics. And so I'm going to start with some HTML basics as far as, the structure of the, this is part of my summer activity, by the way, is going to be planning my curriculum and syllabus. Basic structure of pages with headers and just some of the basic tags and things like that. But I think we'll do a little bit of Google Sites. And then I do want to go into WordPress. So I had worked with a local WordPress developer in Oklahoma that was trying to really get into the state and the computer, whatever they called it. It was, basically the curriculum for high school for all the web design stuff. And I'm going to contact them and see, if they're still doing that, because they were packaging things together where everybody could basically have their own cPanel. And I think that would be absolutely fantastic. Now, this is middle school. This isn't high school, but it is 6th through 8th grade. So the current teacher of that class is having students right now, create some projects for some different entities, and some of those will be more basic with WYSIWYG, Google Sites kind of stuff, and then some are getting a little fancier. But anyway, that's, if anybody else has ideas about that, there's a variety, of different online curricula. So I'm really looking forward to that, though, because I have not ever formally taught a web design class for students. I've just done professional development for teachers, and I think been making web pages since the early, for a long time, the mid 90s, I guess.
Yeah, there you go. Well, Wes, as much as I'd like to talk about web design curriculum with you, what is the EdTech Situation Room all about?
Well, we're here to talk about the week's technology news through an educational lens. And we've been talking a lot of AI lately. If anybody wants to go to edtechsr.com/links, you can get our Google Doc where we've got subtitles for security and privacy, social media tech correction, AI, which we look like have about over 20 articles there, copyright, intellectual property. We have a lot of wars tonight, like war, culture war. And I added one, chip war, which I had not heard of before, but pretty good podcast reference here. Google, Microsoft, Apple, and the Geek of the Week. And my suggestion tonight, Jason, would be maybe we can hit a few that we think would be a little faster, and then maybe we'll dive into some. But I'm open to whatever direction you would like to go tonight.
Well, here's the problem with AI. It's just...
We haven't gotten to it lately, actually, have we? Because we've kind of done that, and when we didn't get to it till like the last 15 minutes.
Well, let me start with an AI topic that's not an article, but I've been thinking a lot about this. And I'll give you an example of this. I'm going to share a tool later. Actually, you know what? I'm going to share it right now because I have another Geek of the Week I'm going to share. I found a really amazing tool the other day, and it is called Eightify, EIGHTIFY. And it's not an exaggeration to say that there are now thousands of new AI tools. They're showing up every single day. And I'm noticing a couple patterns here. The first pattern is that none of these are running on advertising, right? At least not that I'm aware of. And they also don't seem to be utilizing our data other than to train the language models, right? And now that's arguably, a bad thing, right? They're using our data to train models, but it also means that a lot of these services are charging money for anything but the most basic of accounts. And if you look at Adify, and actually let me tell you what Adify does, it's pretty sweet. Adify is a tool that is a YouTube summary tool utilizing ChatGPT. And there's actually dozens of these, and several of them are free. The free ones do things like it takes the YouTube transcript, because YouTube either auto generates closed caption transcripts, or if you can upload one if you want to modify it and have it be more accurate. But the simplest of tools, and the one that I utilize that's a simple tool, is called YouTube Summary with ChatGPT. And it's just a free plugin that takes the summary and feeds it into your ChatGPT account. But the difference between that and Adify is that Adify has a button that says create a summary. You have to sign into it and create a summary. And the thing that's kind of bizarre about that is that it gives you 3 free ones a week, and also you can't do smaller videos unless you pay for a paid for account. So you get 3 free videos a week. They can be up to an hour. They have to be videos with views of 30,000 or more, right? So so they just want you to summarize big videos, I guess. And it's really novel. It creates a summary of the video. In fact, I used it with a crash course history video last night, and it created, a really good set of bullet points about the kind of a summary of the video. And then if you want to see the part of the video the summary refers to, you just click on the link and it takes you right to that part of the video. So super cool tool. And it's also a really great learning tool, because if you're utilizing YouTube as a learning tool, right? I'm thinking mostly of informal learning here, although obviously it would have incredible implications to a more formal learning environment. It would really allow you to process long videos really easily, right? And when we think about what's a good use, what's a quality use of these AI models, I can't think of a much better example I've seen than this. But here I am, and I'm going to use my third free one because I've used them twice so far. I'm just going to go to a random video here, and I will do Jimmy Kimmel's Live's monologue last night. I'm going to summarize the video. It's preparing the summary. It's going to tell me here in a second that, there we go. The video covers a range of topics, including a book of letters from famous people thanking Trump for favors, Trump's discomfort with, it's all about Trump. But so this is all well and good, but if you want to do any video of any length, you got to pay $5 a month or $50 annually. Now, $5 a month isn't a bad price for this. But what I'm noticing is that if you want a wide variety of AI tools, I'm not talking about ChatGPT. I think that's worth the whatever I'm paying for in a month, $30 or $25 a month, because I use it for an hour every day, right? And it probably saves me, I would say in the last week, calendar week, I've probably been 7 or 8 hours more productive because of it, right? It's helping me edit, it's helping me create outlines, it's helping me write tweets, and it's all part of all the work I do in different ways, shape, or forms. It's really amazing. But I think we're going to run into a point really quickly here where you can't spend $400 a month on these 7 AI tools. And I don't think most of these companies are going to survive the year, right? And I imagine that a lot of this is a cash grab to continue development in hopes of providing an economic model at some point that could get critical mass enough to the price could go down again. But I do think we need to be thinking about this notion that I hope someone out there is going to create a suite of tools, right? That it's, 7, 8, 9, 15, 20 different application tools for ChatGPT and other large language models that is worth $30 a month, right? And, a lot of people I know that use ChatGPT directly, like, it's super cool and it's a really amazing tool. but that's the rawest available, right? Like it is literally going directly to the language model. And I'm not saying that there's ways that you can't use it in that way very productively, because I'm doing that. But that's where I'm starting to think this is going to start to get a little more complicated, because again, I'm a compensated professional. Computers are both a professional thing for me and a hobby. So if I suddenly have 80, 90, $100 a month in AI tool payments, that's probably pretty reasonable for the time I'm getting out of it. It gets a little weirder if it starts to get into the $200 or $300 a month piece. And I think that's going to limit its application and learning too. So a lot of rambling for me. Your thoughts, Dr. Fryer?
Well, a few weeks ago, it was possible to do this without any kind of payment. And it's interesting how the ChatGPT has been, kind of hobbled by Bing following Kevin Rose's, virtual dating with Sydney, that whole thing that we talked about, from the Hard Fork podcast.
Yeah.
And then ChatGPT overall, maybe because of that, but I think it also is just a lot to do with utilization for 4.0, has some more limits on it in terms of what you can do. And you just can't throw a transcript for an entire, you can't throw an unlimited text block like an entire transcript in there. But there are ways to get around that as far as iteratively doing that. Yeah, Betsy's saying in the chat, and hello, Betsy, that, it's hard for her to see spending school money at this point. So much is unknown.
Yes.
But the thing is, so much is available for free, right? And I'll reference, I think, a video in my shoot. Let's just do it now. I didn't put it under the Geek of the Week. It's amazing. This came out just 3 days ago. And I had not heard of this conference or this speaker, but Ethan Mollick teaches at the Wharton School at I think the University of Pennsylvania, or it's at Wharton. Maybe that's part of UPenn. I think it is, because that's his address. Anyway, he does a lot of gamification with business courses. And so this video, which was released on April 23rd, is called AI Required: Teaching in a New World. It was at it says an ASU plus GSV. So it was at some kind of a conference. But I watched I watched and listened to this morning, because I'm kind of like do my little professional development, either podcast or sometimes a video. It's kind of like a TED Talk. This is a 21-minute, but he requires his students to use AI and talked about the incredible productivity gains that they've had and the increased level of complexity of the kinds of assignments and projects that they're actually able to do, because everyone is boosted by superpowers. One of the things he says is don't waste your money, taking a course or something like that. Like there's a lot of things that as you play with ChatGPT, you can iteratively figure out. And so I'm pretty sure, someone actually tweeted us a link to a video that explained how to get around the limit on text size, which I think is just basically by using a chunking tool and then putting the summary in multiple stages. So you're going to save yourself a couple of clicks, but I agree with you 100%. It is going to quickly become, untenable to spend too much money on subscriptions for AI tools. But on the other hand, I want to say I'm happy to see these things not just being advertisement and, user data funded. I think that is a favorable development. But, I think we want to continue to play with these tools and explore them, but probably also, be cautious with how many of these things you're going to end up paying for at the end of the day.
Yeah, totally. Yep. I absolutely could not agree more. So yeah, just a thought I was thinking about, and it's becoming increasingly clear to me that if you're not planning on what to do with this educationally, then you're just not taking this seriously enough, right? And I do think that has to be a lot of where discussions in your schools and districts need to be right now.
It's going to be super interesting to teach a web design course. Now, I won't actually teach that until the spring next year, so I'll have a little bit more time even in the fall to consider what we're going to do. But my school is very open to AI tools and ChatGPT. our honor council for our high school has had several situations so far that relate to that. It is going to be, we've said this before. It's a game changer. I mean, being
Yeah.
able to have this kind of access and not utilizing it is going to be comparatively like tying your hands behind your back when you're going to try to, run or something, or I don't know what the metaphor is, but we're going to be, again, I don't know. It's not all about competition, but we're going to be living with a lot of folks who are utilizing these tools, and it's I think that I'll have an opportunity to embrace it as a web design teacher at my school. But it's going to be interesting, right? Because sometimes my statistics professor for my doctorate, had us do, I think we did ANCOVAs by hand. We did a bunch, and we used the tables, and and we were using SPSS, which is now a defunct software program, right? People have moved on to other kinds of software programs for statistical analysis, in education. I think my hand is not in that world right now, but anyway, I think there'll be an opportunity to do that. So I wonder where folks are aggregating sort of the trials of these different kinds of tools and what they're doing educationally with them. Surely there's going to be a SIG for ISTE about this, but it'll be interesting to see if TCEA or FETC or just any organization is going. And I know you're continuing to do your Wakelet. Have you broken that out a little bit as far as tools versus articles, or is it all still just kind of in one place?
Well, it's all just articles, and I haven't been keeping up because of the sheer volume of it, but that's exactly what I'm considering doing, is that I am starting to bookmark sites, and part of it is that, and I'm in the middle of a legislative session right now, and if you've watched the national news, you know that the Montana's been embroiled in a couple controversies over the last 7 days. But and so I really don't have the time really like I would otherwise to be able to kind of play around with these. But I am starting to. Oh, I just clicked on a video that I had bookmarked. There are dozens of tools that I've bookmarked as having potential benefit, and I think I'm going to put those into a Wakelet at some point just to say things to play around with. But I'm just looking as an example of that pay piece, and obviously I linked to Bard. In fact, I stall them as PWAs, Progressive Web Apps, but ChatGPT, Google Bard. I don't really use the Bing one all that much because it requires the Edge browser, and it's just not something I don't really spend much time in the Edge browser except for a couple of kind of side use cases. But here's one called Sharely, and this one is $5 a month. And here's one called Humana, it's $15 a month. And here's one called AL Aziz that is $5 a month. And here's Unriddle, which is $16 a month. And here's Clad AI, which is $49 a month. And here is Insert Chat GPT, which is a super cool piece where you can create your own bot based on your training data. And you can have up to 5 widgets for $15 a month. And again, I'm sure there's a lot of commercial applications from these narrow-eyes tools, but I just don't know yet. Again, it's going to have to figure itself out, right? And I am still a little shocked. I'm still catching up with inflation, right? So when I see price tags of things, airline tickets, my wife and I did book a summer trip to Germany and Sweden this summer, which is something we wanted to do since pre-pandemic. We're going to go to the midsummer or summer solstice festival with our we can call them family in Sweden, and then we want to see a little bit of northern Germany too. And I'm still a little shocked at the price of the airline tickets. Even though we'd saved up for this trip, and I at the same time, though, like, it is going to be the Wild West, and I imagine that a lot of these companies are developing these different tools. It's a gold rush, and that's a little disappointing. As Betsy said in chat, I think she's correct that it's going to make these really problematic for schools. And I haven't seen any real great K-12 focused tools yet. I'm not even talking about ones for teachers. A couple of those that are pretty great. But someone's going to have to figure out a student-driven version of this, right? And someone's going to make a lot of money here, but I imagine the data privacy piece alone is just a nightmare.
Well, but ChatGPT by itself, lots of thoughts. ChatGPT by itself is so powerful now in terms of just if you're creative with your queries, and there's a lot of people sharing ideas and resources about that. I need to be using it. I'm paying for it, but I'm not using it every day or really. I probably haven't even used it every week. And so I need to be doing that. Couple thoughts. Number one, this reminds me a lot of the early days of Web 2.0, right? So around 2005, late 2000s, when all these different tools were exploding and blogs, and it was the read write web and the opportunity to be able to publish at will, and lots and lots of tools. And I think these things don't really lend themselves as well to a quote book because of the permanency of the book, just how
Yeah.
quickly the tools are going. If you resurrect your website at some point, I think that these kinds of things would be great blog posts
Yeah, I think
in
so
terms
too.
of being able to share those and then thinking about what you're going to amplify, just being able to amplify those. The other thought that I had, and I don't know, maybe we can propose this online. I wanted to do what has been termed an EdTech play date. I learned about this from Ginny Majera
Mhm.
years ago, and it's just a time to come together and play with some tools. And I ran into some local roadblocks with going ahead and hosting that, and just lots of stuff's going on. So, but I thought about doing it online because there's so many folks that are interested in this kind of thing. And I saw Joyce Valenza well, actually, maybe she was a participant just in a webinar that happened recently. And, it just having some folks who have played with this a little bit, sharing what they're doing and playing with, I don't know, maybe that's something even you and I might just do and say, hey, if you want to, come to this Zoom play date on ChatGPT. I mean, I actually have a whole website set up for it and everything. I was just going to do it, in Charlotte locally. And I still think there could be value in doing that. But anyway, I think, yes, it's going to be a gold rush. Yes, there's going to be a lot of tools. But honestly, and this is also going off that video I just shared from Ethan Mollick, there are so many incredible things that anyone can do right now for free with ChatGPT 3.5. You don't even have to pay for 4.0. It's freaking amazing. And so, yes, there are going to be issues in terms of, student privacy, but, there's, we just have to play with it. We've got to play with the tools. But I think it is valuable that you're exploring these things. And from a personal standpoint about our show, I mean, one of the things that does hold us up a little bit is, I mean, when I post the show, which we're a few weeks behind now, I do try to have a summary. And so I've been, using ChatGPT, and then they changed the rules a little bit. And so anyway, I'm interested in being things that would streamline that process, because there is an extension that I downloaded, but it doesn't work now, which just take the whole transcript and throws it in. But
Right.
that one doesn't work now.
Wes, do you buy Midjourney?
I am not paying for it yet, but
Okay.
I'm considering it.
I am, and I'll tell you a little story that blows me away a little bit. And this is part of why I do spend some time telling people that if they're not already doing it, they should make sure that they're researching all the available docs on a tool. But I recently figured out that I was not using Midjourney 5. So that was the latest update. It happened 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I thought I was using it because I was getting good output. And then I started playing around with some of the settings and realized that there were several interesting settings that I had not had an opportunity to play with yet, and they really changed the nature of the way that goes. And then I put it to version 5, and it is stunningly good. And here, to just give an example of some of the things that I do. I this is one of my strategies when I'm working on projects like this is I always have a Google Doc up in the background, and I have 4 or 5 Google Docs that are my life basically, right? One of them's full of just project information. I have one that I call the cow, the compendium of wisdom, which is a term that I stole from an English teacher when we had a foreign exchange student here that I really liked. But I have just been blown away about how great the images are that I can produce, and it's a little sad because I just my mind goes wild with what my PowerPoints would have looked like, and I tend to be a very visual PowerPoint person. I am really much a student of the kind of minimalist Steve Jobs style PowerPoints, but I've created some images of Winston Churchill and Harry Truman and Thomas Jefferson and that have just blown me away. And there are all these tweaks you can make in Midjourney, and I'm paying for it. So that I can get basically unlimited access to it, and it's just mind blowing.
Here's the tool that I want. I'm a big fan of Ignite presentations and presentation Zen and a Steve Jobs influenced, minimalist presentation. But this idea, like Gar Reynolds talks about in presentation Zen, of full bleed images, minimal text, really letting the images do a lot of the communication as you're giving a presentation. Well, how long is it going to be until we're going to be able to get a tool that's going to be able to listen to us live, just like a smart speaker, and then is going to be able to present visually images? Now, maybe you could have somebody gatekeep them and say, yes, I want that one. Yet, no, I don't. But maybe there's going to be a live version, because I do this now. I mean, I did a series of Wonderlinks for my kids. I did this for my robotics class. I've got one section of robotics this semester. And I'll talk about this chip war article here in a minute. Maybe this will segue to it. But I needed my opening question was, how much what do you think the likelihood is, 1 to 5, of war with China and the United States military conflict in the next 10 years? And so I referenced Chip Miller's book, Chip War: The Fight for the World's Most Critical Technology. Then I asked what semiconductors are. Here's a picture of semiconductors. Then I said, what do you know about Taiwan? Where's Taiwan? Taiwan's Wikipedia article. And then I said, what do you know about Huawei? Have you heard about them? Have you heard about them being banned? Huawei's Wikipedia article. And then I went to the Google News, just link of Huawei ban articles. Then I linked to the podcast. And so I'll share that one now. This is an Ezra Klein April 4th podcast. Now, it was actually shared on Hard Fork. They republished this one. And so I thought they were going to do their own version. And so when they mentioned this, I went over and listened to the Ezra Klein one. And then that's actually what they republished. But this is called The Most Amazing and Dangerous Technology in the World. It's an interview that Ezra does with the author of the book on chip war, Chris Miller. And then I shared just a little clip of what is the most amazing animated video I've ever seen. I shared this with you last time. It's by Ray Dalio, and he has a book also. It's called Principles for Dealing with the Changing World Order. And it is really, really a thought-provoking video. So my question is, when are we going to have tools that are going to facilitate this kind of sort of hyperlinked but visual presentation? Because I didn't create a one tab. If you all don't use one tab, it really is a great Google extension where you can have a whole series of tabs. You can collapse them, you can expand them, but you can also share a single link that has all of those, kind of in a hot list. And that's one of the things as a presenter, because I spend, it's been a while. So I don't do a lot of keynotes nowadays, but when I have, I spend a fair number of hours putting all of those slides together. And now to think about Midjourney being at my fingertips and not just having to use Unsplash or, I use a lot of openly licensed images. It is stunning. And I think that, again, the tools are going to change and cost and all of that, but being able to communicate ideas well and being able to use images to support and amplify the messages that you're sharing, I think is a very, very important skill. And so it's going to be really cool to see with conferences what speakers will embrace these kinds of things. And I think that we will see soon some kind of tool like that is going to be able to present maybe even a visual wall. I don't remember the name of the tool, but there's been some things before. I don't know if it was with Flickr or with other things, but we kind of present wall, an image, a wall of images and things like that. And just to consider how little the time savings that you might have. And then of course it could be perilous as well, especially if you're in a classroom, because, things, you better be careful what you say and talk about. And I'd be very hesitant to want to turn something like that on live, but thinking about using a tool like that, a Midjourney powered presentation creator, if that's not in existence right now, that is coming to a web page near you soon. And I'm excited to hear about your experiments with Midjourney, because I've only dabbled a little bit. Did you share the link last week of comparing the Barack Obama and Donald Trump basketball? Yes. Yeah. So I shared that with another one of my classes, and that is so visually arresting to say that's a year. But for sure, the velocity of change with these AI tools is stunning. And when you visually see it, as you did in that article, and that's in last week's show notes, if y'all want to go back to it, you make me excited to give Midjourney 5 a try and probably start paying. Thank you very much, Mr. Neiffer.
Yeah. Well, and Dr. Fryer's blog is called Speed of Creativity, and you want to talk about the speed of creativity. It makes the stuff that you based that title off of seem like it's a turtle slow, right? And the reality is, once we figure out how to embrace this in a way that's safe and productive, you think about divergent thinking, right? Which is what we hope out of our students: the ability to think fast, to think about something in ways that's non-traditional. These tools in the hands of a creative person, it's going to be truly stunning.
Here's a big new thought for me as a result of that Ethan Mollick AI required teaching in a new world video. People have talked about the singularity, and this is the artificial general intelligence, when these AIs exceed human capacity. Well, Mollick says we are already there, because he defines that as when the future becomes absolutely impossible to predict. We are seeing these tools get so much better so quickly that I can say today that I do think we are going to see AGI soon, absolutely within our lifetimes, assuming something catastrophic doesn't happen to us in the next year or two. But like I do, and it was only in November when I think it's Christian Gibson, the OpenAI graduate of our school, and I'll be on a podcast with him coming up in May. He shared that there were people in OpenAI who were saying this would happen in 18 months, but he was more like 5 years. And I listened to that in November of 2022 and thought to myself, that is ridiculous. What kind of fairy tale land are these people living in? And then all of a sudden, ChatGPT is released and we start to play with these tools in Midjourney. And I believe we're going to be there. And I think it's really interesting to think about if we're there already. I mean, I don't think they're sentient, and they're not ambulatory, and they're not, they're not taking over the world. But these computers absolutely, they already exceed our capacity, right? Because they've read far more than you or I ever will. You and I are not going to ingest the entire web, thankfully, but we are today, bionically augmented by tools that have. That's crazy. Yeah. And it's free. Every single teacher in the world with an internet connection, I guess you have to have a phone maybe to verify your account, but basically every teacher in the world today can access this. We're switching to Canvas as a school this summer, so that's going to be our summer professional development. But I would offer up that playing with ChatGPT and Midjourney and some of these other tools, that should be an important part of the professional development of every professional educator certainly that's teaching middle and high school, but even others, because there's time there's a time saving factor, but then there's just also the creativity augmentation factor. So I'm, again, always happy to be able to chat with you, because you encourage me to sometimes subscribe to new things and buy new gifts for Christmas for myself, but other times it's just to spend some time playing with some new technologies and tools. We all need catalysts to do that. And oh, actually, somebody had tweeted, I think I might have shared it. I should probably get their Twitter to make sure I get the right, that we had mentioned Padlet. And so let's see, I think I retweeted this on the EdTech SR channel. They were playing with their kids have been playing with the AI image generation in Padlet. And so yeah, the Benfer library, Benfer Poetry Share, I'll give a link to it. So here's the Padlet that was inspired by the show. So yay, hey folks, look at that. Somebody is trying an AI tool because Jason and Wes talked about it. And so the kids wrote lovely poems, and here are the Padlet generated images, which also have gotten pretty good. I haven't visited this since December, January, probably. Wow.
A lot there.
But it's good we're talking about AI, because seriously, in the last couple of shows, or at least last one, I know we were like, well, let's not talk about it. And then we left ourselves like 10 minutes or 15 minutes. So.
Well, I mean, let me do a couple other like AI quick hits here. And part of it is just I just run into so many articles now. Actually, I'm gonna say there is one about UC Berkeley's AI policy. I actually want to save for next time, but
go for it. You go for the speed round. This is the Neiffer AI speed round.
Okay, so let me start with this one. This one is from TechCrunch on April 26th. It's about how music is becoming a kind of a complicated business with generative AI songs. And you probably saw, if you're keeping track of this in the major news media, a deepfake song was released last week with the voices of Drake and The Weeknd's. And it went viral. It went viral and was uploaded to Spotify, and it had millions of listens before they figured out that it was AI generated, right? And I've seen several demos of this the last week or two where people are taking relatively rudimentary versions of these tools and creating some pretty cool stuff. And I'll admit that part of the interest for me here is that I'm a big cover guy. Like, I love it when a really talented artist covers another piece of music that I love. And in fact, one of the things I love about having access to YouTube Music, which I do because I have a YouTube Premium subscription, is that I have about 7 or 8 playlists that are just full of great covers, and they're not even necessarily by popular artists. In fact, I'm following a woman right now that I don't think she's even making music anymore on YouTube, but she has some incredibly soulful, beautiful renditions of some 70s kind of soft rock, progressive rock songs that I just absolutely enamored with. And it's just relaxing, and it's just such a beautiful voice. But that's what's happening right now, is that people are creating basically covers with models of popular artist voices. And of course, this opens up Pandora's box of everything relating to the creation of art, right? In the same way that visual artists have been really skeptical about what these generative AI tools mean to them, in the same way that writers are skeptical about what generative AI means to them, it's starting to create a kind of an interesting debate about what is fair use, what do royalties mean. And I don't remember the name of the artist, but some folks have said that that as long as they can participate in the profits from that, they would be open to people using renditions of their voices as long as they're appropriately compensated for it. And then also, not unlike when 15, 20 years ago, people were recording with recordings of artists that had long passed away, and used a little bit of CGI of audio to edit things. I think it's going to open up big old big old pieces that I think could end up being interesting. I would also share that this is from yesterday's The Verge. OpenAI will now let you turn off your chat history. It will also allow you to opt out of utilizing your chats back and forth to help train the AI model. So one of the things that you may not know if you're a ChatGPT user is that they just don't train ChatGPT off the internet. They train it off of your interaction with it. So as an example of this, one of the things I like to do with ChatGPT is have it edit my writing, right? And there's a lot of good ways you can do that, from a straight rewrite to, please rewrite this for clarity, please rewrite this for tone, or please rewrite this for you want more flowery language, you want more persuasive language, you want less persuasive language, you want it to be less technical, you want to be more technical, you want to edit jargon out of a document. And all those, I think, are really interesting uses. But if you're putting your own stuff in there, and probably the most careful warning I've heard about this is that if you're sharing proprietary information that's owned by someone other than yourself, so in other words, your company's proprietary information, your information could end up getting sucked into the large language model, and then you may not see exact versions of it, but it's now going to inform kind of the Borg of the large language model. And so you can now opt out of that. You can also delete your history, and so it's no longer tracking your history. And the other thing you can do is download your data, so you can actually see a full accounting of everything you've done in ChatGPT. And I've done that. I this evening actually downloaded my history, and it doesn't go back, I don't think, to the beginning of my time with ChatGPT, but it's everything there, right? And it's I'm sure that printed out, this has to be well over 500 pages, but it has every prompt I've put in, along with everything it's returned. And again, super interesting stuff. But that's a welcome new piece that I think is pretty interesting. And then
let me do a quick hit.
yeah, please.
PC Magazine, April 15th. Chinese company ditches human creatives for ChatGPT style AI. We've heard this is coming, and it is coming, right? There's going to be some displacement, maybe a lot of displacement of white collar, college educated, creative class jobs. And they Blue Focus Intelligent Communications Group, which is a Chinese company, is using ChatGPT like generative AI models instead of external copywriters and graphic designers. So we're going to see more of that. And there's a PC Mag article talking about how this is part of our landscape.
And then a couple other real brief ones, and then I kind of want to stop talking about AI. Google has reportedly scheduled a release next month of an AI-powered search tool. Of course, this already exists in the marketplace because that's what AI-powered Edge does, and the chatbot that's in the Edge browser that enhances Bing is already available, and it's okay. I mean, I have access to it, and I would say it's an interesting thing. I don't have a particular article on it this week, but if you want to really go down a rabbit hole, there's a lot of people that are very concerned that Google is giving up on a lot of its ethical promises that it was working on, or ethical framework it was working on in regards to AI, to try to become competitive after OpenAI kind of started eating their lunch there. But I am very interested to see what an AI enhanced Google search might look like. And so that's something that I'm super interested in seeing more of, and I hope it leads to a good quality tool that can help inform, enlighten, and give students and teachers alike, and people, good things to research.
Did we talk about the 60 Minutes Google AI last time?
I think we did.
Okay. It's fantastic, but it is kind of propaganda for Google in terms of amplifying, what Bard and Google's AI tools are going to do. I think the most exciting thing about that, pardon me, is the the idea of being able to use your own data, right? And being able to work with Gmail and work with Calendar and work with Docs and being able to especially, manipulate things like email. I need that so bad. So, but anyway, it's definitely worth seeing, and it's well worth your time to watch, and it's about 30 minutes long.
Yeah, very good. Okay, shall we talk about some, like old school, just tech stuff?
Sure. I've got quite an article that's kind of a shocker.
Yeah, do it.
Okay, I put this down. Did I put it under miscellaneous, or did I put it? I think I put it under social media. Wow. NBC News today. A 13-year-old was groomed publicly on Twitter and kidnapped even after his parents warned authorities.
Yikes.
There are so many aspects of this to break down. Yes, Twitter was used to publicly groom the 13-year-old, but Roblox as well as Discord were platforms that figure into this as well. The police mistyped the address of the Twitter account, which was of this person who's now been arrested after this really unfortunate and lamentable sexual assault. And in the 20 days that it took for somebody to recognize, oh, we spelled this wrong or whatever, this happened. So there were multiple opportunities where this could have where this could have been stopped. But it just reminds of how important it is for us to be talking with parents, talking with grandparents, talking with any kind of guardians, that tools like web platforms, I guess, software programs, it is a website, but Discord, an extremely, dangerous platform in terms of people being able to gain individual messaging access. And this, I would encourage people to read the entire article. It really is the nightmare scenario of the young, 13-year-old boy who ends up being contacted by someone, ends up being, sent pornography, encouraged to hide this, but then, leaves his house, and the parent goes into the room, and the window is up and he's gone, and it's cold, and they know where he's gone, and it's only an Amber Alert, that finally gets him after this assault has happened. So it's really important, folks, that we talk with students, but also talking with parents and guardians and caregivers about these kinds of safety issues. And this also begs the question of whether Elon Musk firing all the people that he did at Twitter has crippled, Twitter's capability to be able to respond to things like this, because this sort of thing, clear and present danger, hey, we know that this person is, trying to get this child, and they're not able to respond in a timely way. And like I said, there was a law enforcement error as well. But terrible situation, and something that you may not actually want to share directly with students, but I think if you have an opportunity to talk with parents, Roblox, Discord, but other things like Twitter, certainly Telegram. But if you share your Discord ID, it's like you're giving your cell phone number away, right? And we know, and generally students know, we're not going to give away our cell phone number, but they may not think about their Discord handle. So
totally. Okay, let's talk some again, old-fashioned tech news. There's a really interesting article that came from a national. Actually, there were several coverages of this. This is from The Verge. I'm under Google, by the way. This is from The Verge on the 21st. Monica Chin, who I think does a lot of the Google work, there's excellent coverage from The Verge. Reported on a report from the U.S. Public Interest Research Group that found that there's a problem growing in 2023, which is in 2020, schools bought I don't know what the technical term is, an S-ton maybe of Chromebooks, lots and lots and lots and lots of Chromebooks. And what the U.S. Public Interest Research Group Education Fund says in a report they call Chromebook churn, that many of these batches are already beginning to break, which is potentially costing districts money. And PIRG estimates that doubling the lifespan of Chromebooks could result in $1.8 billion in savings for taxpayers, and also creates quite a bit of e-waste. And so the reason why I want to talk about this is that I haven't read the report yet. I have downloaded the report. I haven't read it yet though. And I'm not sure if this is entirely a fair article from the standpoint that I don't think Chromebooks are the problem. I think cheap hardware is the problem, right? And I want to talk about this in two realms. The first one is that while I agree that Chromebooks, I think that Google could easily make Chromebooks 10-year supported devices, right? Like that's something that wouldn't be that big of a deal. And in fact, the reason why I know that is because I own a 2013 Chromebook Pixel that I bought used for a song 5 or 6 years ago, and it's actually my favorite keyboard I've ever used on a mobile device, including new Macs, which I have excellent keyboards on them. And I installed Chromebook Flex on it, and it is just as speedy and excellent as it was the day I bought it 10 years ago. So that tells me that, with decent hardware, Chrome OS can run on a 10-year-old device without breaking a sweat. But I think one of the problems we're running into is that cheap Chromebooks, right? Super plasticky, not very user updatable, or at least user fixable, low resolution screens, certainly low end processors. Chrome OS can run on those devices, but that doesn't mean it's going to be a long lasting experience. And I do find it interesting and a little ironic that when we're buying Chromebooks for probably the hardest users on hardware, which are kids, right, that we just prefer cheaper, and then we wonder why they're not lasting for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, right? And so I want to say, if you're buying the Windows equivalent of that, right? So medium end, low end processor, 2 or 4 gigs of RAM, I don't think they're going to last much longer in the hands of kids either, because if you're buying cheap plasticky stuff that you buy mass market, there's a pretty good chance that that's also going to run on as well. So I felt like this report was a little unfair blaming it on Chromebooks. I think the problem is low end hardware.
One of the things that stuck in my mind in the early 2000s when I was writing a grant for the Texas Immersion Pilot Project and getting teachers and students in Floyd Data and post Texas laptops was that the bottom line should not be how cheaply can this hardware manufacturer deliver these laptops to the loading dock in my school district. And, Apple would talk about that because Apple devices tend to last. Our daughter right now, who's graduated high school and has just finished a prep school year, she is still, and she's so ready to change, but she's been using my 2011 MacBook Air.
Yeah.
And it's still been working. Now, is it running Minecraft and other kinds of games, wonderfully? No, it's not. But bless her heart, I did get her a brand new iPhone 11 Pro. It was like the one device. She's the third child, right? So she gets a lot of hand-me-downs. But the point is, return on investment is key, and I agree with you 100%. My previous school, where we opted to do Chromebooks actually for all middle school students, and that's what got us through the pandemic, planning on a 3-year refresh, right? Yeah. And that's just budgeting, because that is pretty much what you need to do. The devices, and we were using Dell devices, which weren't, super, super cheap, but they just weren't standing up to use and abuse in the same way that, for instance, an Apple, MacBook or iPad would, and other kinds of hardware, because there's, as you point out, there's other kinds of higher end hardware. So,
well, and I give you an example of that. This is a 2010 Lenovo X201, and the X series is one of my favorite Windows laptops of all time. It's really a great thing, and I bought this for a song 5 or 6 years ago because I was looking for kind of a little project computer that I would use on Linux, and it's very popular with the nerd set. And the Lenovo fans are a certain kind of nerd, and I happen to be one of those. If I'm gonna have a Windows laptop, then I want it to be a Lenovo. And looking at the keyboard here, it's got the kind of famous like almost desktop style keyboard, but this is a 13-year-old laptop, and I have Chrome OS Flex working on it, and it is as fast or faster than I do have a kind of a really low end. This is a Chromebook that I bought at Target for like $60 when it was on super sale. It is it's actually pretty good for a $60 laptop. And the reason why I picked it up is because I wanted to see what does a $60 Chromebook look like. It's perfectly fine, right? But there's no way this thing becomes my primary driver, not just because of speed, but because it is super plasticky, right? Like it's not really a hardy piece of hardware. And I'm not a kid, right? And kids are hard on their Chromebooks. That's the bottom line. They get shoved into lockers, they get shoved into bags, they get dropped, they get thrown, because kids are hard on stuff because they're kids. And so, I honestly think if you're looking to do Chromebooks right now, or next generation of Chromebooks, especially if you're in a state like Montana that regularly gives old hardware to schools, I can go to our state hardware warehouse as a public school employee and pick up they don't charge money for it. I can get 4 and 5 year old industrial commercial high end laptops that are past their 4 and 5 year refresh cycle, put Chrome OS Flex on there, or even Windows 10 or 11 for that matter if it's new enough, and it would be a much better experience than if I went and bought the cheap mass produced Celeron processor, 4 gigabytes of RAM machine. So it's just something to think about. And I get that's complex, but these are the conversations. So many schools went one-to-one during the pandemic, and that's awesome because that access is great. But I hope we are discussing and thinking about ways that we can continue to refresh these machines, understanding that if you buy cheap, chances are it's just not going to last as long as you need them to.
Yeah. I reflected with a colleague this morning that during the pandemic, I think a lot of people had their first experiences with emergency remote learning, with maybe perhaps worse practice when it came to pedagogy and the kinds of instruction that can be delivered, in a completely online environment. And it's unfortunate too that a lot of folks have had some negative experiences with one-to-one computing, because the kids have had to use a real baseline device. And yeah, my wife's, the Chromebooks that her kids have probably fall into some of that category as well. So it's lovely to have hardware that is fast and robust and stands up to punishment, and also has some features like styluses and touch screens and things like that. So hopefully we're going to continue to see price points be aggressive in terms of being able to get a lot of bang for your buck for school, but we need to see the ROI, the return on investment, so that we're not having these devices trashed in 3 years.
Yep, absolutely. And then one other quick Google article I'll do here. It's a really interesting article that I missed a couple weeks ago, but this is from Chrome Unboxed on April 3rd. Google may stop forcing Android apps on Chromebooks out of the box. And one of the criticisms I've seen of Chrome OS Flex, which I have installed on a couple of machines, including a wonderful Dell desktop machine that's 5 or 6 years old, but it's a really speedy like desktop Chrome OS experience, is that you don't get to use Android apps. And I'll tell you, I'm not sure if there are very many people like me that are essentially Chrome OS power users, and I would be perfectly happy staying on a Chrome OS, a desktop or laptop, assuming that they have enough guts behind it. But I don't really use Android apps, and Google keeps finding more ways of helping you use the web in more nuanced ways. Progressive web apps is a good example of that. I use tons of progressive web apps in a very nuanced way, and living in Chrome world, or living the Chrome OS life, means relying, pretty exclusively on the web. So again, it's just so interesting watching Chrome OS evolve over time. And it at one point I was super excited about Android apps, and I just have never really utilized them in a way that has really changed the way I think about computing or think about the way I'm productive.
Here's a quick Apple article, and then we probably should geek of the week it. This is 9 to 5 Mac. 2 days ago on April 14th, iPhone 14's emergency SOS via satellite saves the day for Utah college kids trapped in a 500-foot deep canyon. So if you were depressed by the last article about a Utah student, here's some good ones. These were college students, and they were hiking in some really, really aggressive, they're from BYU, canyons, and like one of them, like they got stuck, and one of them started to develop hypothermia when they were stuck in the water that was up to chest level and all this. And so anyway, if you're not familiar, the iPhone 14 will detect satellites, and you can point it up and send messages. And so they're able to text, get their location. They're able to send in the helicopter the kids out. That is well, of course, who knows what that bill was for those helicopters, but they are safe. And that is the first article I've seen like that about the iPhone 14's direct satellite connectivity, literally saving the day and enabling folks to emerge from a life-threatening situation. So kudos, Apple. Good technology.
Excellent. Well, sir, it looks like we're at the top of the hour. Man, these hours have been going quick lately. I think it's because we perhaps enjoy talking about the tech. What's your geek of the week?
Okay, real quick, Scratch Day is coming up. I, by myself, and then with Shelly, have done some things in the past for Scratch Day. It's coming up in May. It's May 13th. And so anyway, whether you're going to get together and do something, sponsor an event, there's all kinds of great activities that are around Scratch Day. And that is a wonderful way to promote computational thinking and coding and the kinds of 21st century literacy skills we need everyone to have. And then my second one came from a webinar last night that I attended by that Mike Caulfield was a speaker on. This was for Misinformation Day out of the University of Washington. And I don't know if you've seen this, Jason. When you do a Google search, there are now 3 dots beside the source, and you can click on that, and you're going to get some information, kind of like a little bit of a lateral read just right away about the source. And so that's kind of a cool way to, I don't know what that is. What source is that? And so that I gave a Mastodon thread on that kind of has a screenshot and shows that. So cool search tip and media literacy tip from Disinformation Day, University of Washington, up in your neck of the woods. How about you, Dr. Neiffer? What's your geek of the week?
Well, I mentioned this a little bit earlier this year, but we've opened up registration. Montana Digital Academy, which is my day job, is going to be running an innovation symposium in July at the University of Montana. It's called Innovation Runs Through It. It is the second week of July, and it's the start, we hope, of something big over time. And it does have a technology focus in that we're going to be talking about things that are kind of tech driven and how it might impact the world of education. But we're trying to keep costs as low as possible. It's in Western Montana. And we're really focusing on kind of big picture things in a teacher-friendly way, to not just be exposed to different ways about thinking about teaching and learning, but really practical things that you can bring back to your classroom to do right away without having to get too deep into it too quickly. So it's from July 11th to 13th. InnovationRunsThroughIt.com is the website, and we'll be focusing on proficiency-based education. We're going to do some sessions on AI. We're going to talk about how you can take online and blended learning strategies and theories and use them in your face-to-face classroom or online classroom, and also about the incredible EdReady tool that's a proficiency-based readiness tool that Montana Digital Academy delivers through generous support of the Washington Foundation to the state of Montana. So if you're interested in being in our inaugural event, we're really looking forward to a nice, relaxed couple of days in Western Montana. InnovationRunsThroughIt.com.
And I can say that is a fantastic college of education and a beautiful venue, having been up there a few times. I don't think Willie Nelson will be coming back for a concert in the park this year, but
although now I'm kind of remember who is the artist. There is like some 90s bands that are doing something in one of the amphitheaters at the end of that week, and we just got tickets. Big Head Todd and the Monsters and one other band is going to be in the Kettle House Amphitheater in East Missoula. So we're pretty excited about that too.
Oh, and Peggy just said that I guess I shared the wrong time for our show, and so she wasn't able to get here at the start. So apologies for that. I did not intend to do that at all. So I was trying to share that early, but you would think I wouldn't be time zone confused, but it still happens. So, all right. Well, we are exceeding 60 minutes, but
Yeah.
that's okay. That's all right.
Well,
Everybody, you're getting more than your money's worth tonight.
Dr. Fryer, where can people find you on the internet?
wesfryer.com/after, still on Twitter at wfryer, and on mastodon.cloud at wfryer as well. How about you?
I'm still on Twitter, although next week I'd love to talk about the shocking price they're charging organizations to get a check mark on Twitter. So I'm there at Tech Savvy Teach. I'm on Mastodon at knife@mastodon.cloud. And on the excellent advice of my good friend Dr. Fryer, I'm going to try to get a web presence back up. I didn't really have a reason for it in the last couple of years, but for a variety of reasons, I'm going to start doing that again. So, but hey, it's not just about us. It's the EdTech Situation Room. We're a once a week podcast on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Mountain Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We'd love it if you join us live. We're available on YouTube. We also broadcast over Facebook. You can see the archives at YouTube. If you don't want to see us live, you can always download the podcast via your favorite podcast aggregator. In fact, every new podcast app I try has EdTech SR on it. And even if you don't want to do that, you can go to our website, edtechsr.com, download a tiny MP3, or check out the links from this week's show. We hope you have a wonderful week. Stay safe, stay savvy, and we will see you next time at the EdTech Situation Room. Good night, friends.
Good night.